Nigeria's economic potential is vast and diverse, with the country boasting the largest economy in Africa. However, this potential is constrained by several structural issues, which includes inadequate infrastructure, trade barriers, obstacles to investment, and limited foreign exchange capacity. Despite these challenges, Nigeria has the potential to become a major player in the global market. The country is rich in natural resources, including oil, natural gas, and minerals, and also has a large and growing population with over 200 million persons. Well, joining me to discuss Nigeria's vast potential, particularly within the economic context, is Nick Agule. He is the founder of Nick Agule Foundation. He joins virtually. Thank you for your time, Nick.
Thank you very much, and good evening to our viewers globally.
Good evening. Now, let me start by making a bit of reference to what the president did say during the presentation of the 2025 proposed budget, where he said he drew heavily on the economy of the country, which of course is the core, and he said it would drop inflation from 34% that it is right now to about 15%. And also said he hopes to strengthen the naira from 1,700 to about 1,500 to the dollar. I would like your reaction to this vis-a-vis Nigeria's current economic condition.
Thank you very much for your question. Indeed, we are going to dig deep into the structural issues militating against economic growth in Nigeria. But I want to serve a caveat upfront to say that these structural imbalances arise from a particular issue we have in Nigeria, and that is the lack of rule of law. Any nation that is not being run with the rule of law is going to have difficulty. And we can spend all day analyzing the difficulties and the challenges, but until we turn Nigeria to a democracy that is run by the rule of law, we are going to analyze these challenges perhaps for the rest of our lives. And what I mean by rule of law is simple. Every Nigerian, from the president to the last man on the street, must be held accountable for their actions equally before the law. If that is not the case, then it's not going to work for us. It's as basic as that, right? So no matter what we discuss here, no matter the solutions that we are going to profile, if Nigeria as a democracy is a country where some persons are above the law, or like Mr. President did indicate in his media chat that he was not going to investigate the security architecture, he basically said the security architecture is above the law. Mr. President had a unique opportunity to have firmly made it clear that he's ready to run Nigeria with the rule of law, and it doesn't matter who is at the other end, even if it's a general, that the rule of law is going to catch up with them. So having said that, having laid that background, let me address the two matters that you have on the table, which is in the president's budget presentation, where he said he will bring inflation down to 15% and he will strengthen the naira to the 1,500 levels. Very good, I would say, but the question is how. As they say, the devil is in the detail. As of today, inflation is 34%. So how is Mr. President going to bring it down? Now, there are two ways you can bring down inflation. You either use monetary tools, which basically is a hike in interest rate, or you deal with the supply, because inflation is an increase in price. So if you go to basic economics, the one we even read in secondary school, for those who took economics as a course, we were told that two things can cause a price rise. It's either the demand is high, the higher the demand, the higher the price, or the lower the supply, the higher the price. So if you want to deal with inflation, you either try to reduce demand or you increase supply. And to reduce demand is what the central bank does. Because when the central bank hikes interest rate, they are thinking that because of the attractive interest rate offered by the banks, people will no longer demand. They will go and put the money in the bank to earn interest rate. So that is the monetary aspect of tackling inflation. And the central bank has been doing that now for the past 1 year. Since March, the current central bank governor has been having monetary policy committee meetings, increasing interest rate. It has not brought down inflation. Then we look at the other way you can tackle inflation, which is increase the supply. Because the more the supply, the less the price. But Mr. President is not showing anything that can give us hope that supply is going to be increased. So for the benefit of viewers who perhaps are a bit technical, the central bank means of bringing inflation down is what you call monetary policy. And then the other means of increasing supply is what you call fiscal policy. So a budget, for instance, is expected to put in place structures that will increase supply, increase food supply, increase petroleum product supply, increase transportation avenues that Nigerians can take, increase electricity supply, increase all of those supplies so that the prices will come down. What exactly is this current government doing? For instance,
but is that usually the case?
Supply?
I'm sorry to interrupt your line of thought. Is that usually because the issue of price control also came up in that conversation where someone did ask that it appears like some individuals are taking advantage of that general rhetoric that things are expensive, things are hard, to make abnormal profit and increase the prices of things astronomically. I mean, this is not demand and supply really at play here. It's just maybe personal greed on the part of some Nigerians, especially when it comes to basic items, right? And the president expressly did say that he does not believe in price control. So I would like you to also speak within that too. What is missing here?
So let us be very clear about this. It is about demand and supply. It is the lack of supply that is making people take advantage of the market, right? Let me just use a basic example. Assuming in the whole of Lagos State, for instance, you have perhaps maybe 10,000 yams supplied to the market, and the 10,000 yams are so inadequate that so many people are looking for yams. That is what will make sellers to hike the prices, because they know that no matter the price that they will set for the yams, people will buy the yams because the yams are not in the market. But just imagine that you now have 1 million yams supplied to that Lagos market. Then a trader now hikes the price of his yam. Look, the next trader with him is going to sell the yam at a cheaper price because there is a flood of yams in the market and they want to sell the yams.
Okay. Can I also come in here? Can I come in here? Let me give another, just of course, maybe to counter what you said. Another basic, of course, need is accommodation, where overnight, in Lagos, for instance, we are seeing some landlords, many of them, from developers to landlords, astronomically increase rent, right? Some as high as 100% from the initial figure. And I mean, would you say because there's scarcity of houses in Lagos, or it's just a group of people who just feel, let's take advantage of the hardship and, you know, make some money off these people?
Again, it's basic economics. The landlords are taking advantage of a market where there are more people looking for houses to rent than houses that are available.
Is it about availability or the fact that that sector is not regulated?
It's okay. Regulation is okay. Every sector needs to be regulated so that there are no sharp practices and standards are maintained and all of that. But when you come to pricing, you discover that, look, like in that Lagos you are saying now, assuming in that Lagos, the government has taken steps whereby they are going to have these mass housing schemes, and it is possible that a graduate who lands a job is able to get their own house. you will find out that the landlords who are hiking the rent now, they will not be seeing tenants. And if they are not seeing tenants, they will advise themselves that, look, we have to bring down our rent so that we can attract tenants to come. And that is where we talk about structural imbalances. Elsewhere, what governments do is that government provide the enabling environment for credit to be extended to an economy. Like in Nigeria, you know, a lot of people are anonymous, even though we have the NIM, which is National Identity Management and all of that. But, you know, you need a credit register and all of that so that banks can extend mortgage loans to people to build their own houses. That way, if you are working, instead of paying rent to a landlord, you take a mortgage, build your house, and in 20, 30 years, you'll be paying the mortgage. So the money you should have been using in paying rent, you are using it to pay for your own house. So that at the end of your working career, 20, 30 years, the house belongs to you. So if we have this kind of competition, where workers are now accessing cheap mortgage loans, I say maybe like 5%, right? And there is a huge construction boom where, estate companies are building houses because the banks are supporting workers with mortgage loans. Then the landlords will advise themselves that, look, if we increase rent, people are not going to take our houses. That's what happens.
Okay, let's of course come back to the issue of revenue generation for the country. We know that Nigeria heavily depends on the oil sector to generate a bulk of its revenue, but there seems not to be so much of searchlight in the non-oil sector. Many are asking questions even around the mining sector, for instance, where you have resources such as gold, and uranium and the likes, in some parts of the country that is even mined illegally in mass. So I would like you to speak in that direction too, as regards how much of an impact that is even, having on the economy at large.
I'm happy to speak on that dimension of oil revenues. But before I do that, you have put two things on the table. The other one was the exchange rate. So let me briefly address that as well.
Okay.
So the president says that he is going to manage the exchange rate to bring it down to 1,500. You see, there has been a notion in Nigeria that we need to address, because you ask yourself, who does a strong Naira help? If Naira is strong, who benefits? The person who benefits if the Naira is strong is an importer. Yeah, the person who is bringing things into Nigeria, because he's going to bring the things at a cheaper rate. Whereas if the Naira is weak, Nigerian manufacturers are the ones that are expected to be happy, because it means that our goods will be so cheap that people can come and get a lot of Naira for $1 and buy them. So two things are happening. Now that we are an import-dependent economy, it pays us for the Naira to be strong. Because if the Naira is strong, then the cost of importing items will be cheaper for us. But is that what Nigeria should be heading for? Should we be taking policies that will make us to be import dependent? Rather, we should be looking inwards to produce what we consume, and then even if the Naira is weak that time, because we are producing, people will come and buy and the economy will start growing. So it depends on the policy direction of the Mr. President. For me, I will favor that Mr. President should deal with the structural imbalances in Nigeria. For instance, power supply. Well, as we speak today, Nigeria is doing 3,000 to 5,000 megawatts of power supply. South Africa is doing 55,000. For less than half the population, Brazil is doing 150,000. Why should we be on 3,000, 5,000? These are the areas that Mr. President needs to focus on so that we can return Nigeria to a productive economy. Having addressed that, let me now go to the oil revenue. So Nigeria as a country, we produce 2 million barrels of crude oil before in the past. And today we are now down to 1.3, 1.5, and when it's 1.8, we're in euphoria. What I'm saying is, a country like the United States of America, they are producing 18 million barrels of crude oil. And why is Nigeria now doing just 1 million plus? If Nigeria today is producing 5 million barrels of crude oil, we are going to quadruple the revenue that we are earning now. And look, we need to be producing this oil in a haste, because with each passing day, oil is becoming less and less important in the scheme of things, right? So we have about 40 billion barrels of crude oil found in the ground that are already considered as reserves. Why are we not in a rush to produce them? I mean, imagine that if we are doing 10 million barrels per day, 10 million barrels per day, after 356 days, that would just be 3.5 billion. Yet, we have 40 billion in the ground. So for me, the government should start taking the steps to unbundle that sector, deal with the NNPCL, deal with the other structural issues in the oil industry that are militating against production that is making IOC, that's international oil companies, to exit, so that Nigeria can quickly grow production to about 2, 3, 4, 5 million barrels, so that we can make a lot of money and fund our expenditure.
All right, Nick. I mean, I understand that we need to go on a quick break. When we return, we'll also talk about the ease of doing business in Nigeria. I mean, particularly for small businesses. But first, let's go on this quick break. When we return, the show continues. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. This, of course, is still Politics HQ on News Central Television, and we are discussing at the moment the economic situation in the country, Nigeria. I have my guest still with me. Nick Agule is the founder of Nick Agule Foundation, and of course is joining me virtually. Nick, thank you for staying with me. Now, Nigeria's GDP grew by 3.19% in the second quarter of 2024, particularly driven by non-oil sector, which expanded by about, say, 4.13%. Unfortunately, there's also a living crisis or cost of living crisis in the country. I did say that we would dovetail into how easy is it, to run a business, in the country as we speak. We know that just, from the start of the year, some notable brands or companies have left the country, for various reasons. So I would like you to speak on how easy, given the current policies of the current administration and, the business environment, is it easy for any business establishment to survive?
Easy. I also run some enterprises in Nigeria, so I am in the trenches. I know exactly what that means. And Mr. President, in the presidential media chat, did indicate that, he has been, going around the world seeking for investors. But unfortunately, almost every president that we have had in the past have got onto planes and gone around the world. And you realize that the rulers of Dubai are not doing the same. How many times do the rulers of Dubai come to Nigeria to canvass for investment that is making Nigerians go to Dubai to go and invest? These days, Nigerians are going to Rwanda. I don't think Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, has come to Nigeria to canvass for investors. All he did was he sat back and he built a country that is now being attracted to the rest of the world, and they are coming. So how do you expect businesses to come when we have these structural imbalances? Right from business registration, are the government officials willing to help you register your business, or are they looking for money from you? To getting licenses, can you get licenses to do your business, or you are being asked to pay bribes? To infrastructure, we are talking about 3,000 to 5,000 megawatts of electricity. How can a modern day 21st century economy operate with so abysmally low power supply? It's impossible, and then the infrastructure, where are the roads, then the security, the state of insecurity. And today I was talking about, I wrote a short article about the fact that in Nigeria today, you can only catch a train to connect to one state capital out of the 36, and that is Kaduna. You cannot get a train to connect the federal capital from 35 states out of 36 in Nigeria today. Why so? Why? So these are the kind of things that you have to put in place, to attract investors to come. And without putting them, in vain are these trips that we make abroad. Look, we live in an info age now. Investors elsewhere, they know exactly what is happening in Nigeria. We don't need to go to them to go and tell them anything. By the time we go to them and say, bring your investment, and they know that investments are you know, they are to risk in Nigeria, they're just laughing at us. You know, so we need to sit back and do the hard work, right? We need to tackle security. We need to build infrastructure. We need to make government to be more efficient. We need to run Nigeria with the rule of law. Look at the judgment that our courts are given. You know, investors are looking at that and saying, come on, if I bring my money and then I have a dispute, can this same judiciary that is, you know, producing this kind of lopsided judgment give me justice? These are the issues that have to be dealt with before we can talk about an enabling environment that will attract investors.
All right, Nick Agule, thank you so much for your time on the program. It's been an honor having you, and thank you for your opinion.
Thank you so very much, and good evening to our viewers.
All right.